I'm Teresa Carraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. Today I'm recording under the leaping frog, which I think knows that I had frog's legs for dinner, left over from my favorite French restaurant here in my impoverished Appalachian town. Something I never thought would have been possible when I grew up here 60-odd years ago. So, today my topic is, what is tonic masculinity? I'm looking at this from my own perspective, not responding to other people, but looking at why is it that it felt to me like a concept that needed to be coined, something that had to be expressed. And I'm going to look at also why it is that women should be the ones to define tonic masculinity. Let's look at this. My subtitle to this is Tonic Masculinity, the Antidote to Patriarchal Poison. Many men bristle at the word patriarchy because they think it's women saying that they're the problem. But it's not the patri part of it that is the problem. It's the archy. Archy refers to the archons. Hierarchy is the inheritance order of the archons. It's saying that some have a right to rule over everyone else, and that there's an order to that rule. And women are at the bottom, according to our systems of economics that have come to us through religion and government. Government comes from the Greek, with democracy in ancient Greece, and that's where the archons came from. All male. So patriarchy is really a word that is redundant, and matriarchy is actually contradictory. Those two parts can't actually coexist because the archons could not be women. So we have our economic system that has come to us along with religion in Judeo-Christianity that started out with only the patriarchs. Women, I believe, don't even exist in the Bible. I think every time there's a named woman, it represents a territory. So we have the stories of Joseph, for instance, who goes into Egypt and makes all of the farmers indentured servants to the Pharaoh by taking their grain and then taking their land and their children and making them all slaves. That's still the system that we're under. That is the economy that has come down to us from that. So it is not feminists who are emasculating men. It's patriarchy that has emasculated men, because men cannot support a family at this point. The function of men as fathers to be able to maintain and support a household and a home and have a wife who is the mother of their children and be able to bring up those children in security, that is not possible because of our economic system. And that's something that has been passed down from patriarchy. The reason it is up to women to define tonic masculinity is because they're the ones who use the term toxic masculinity. And they use it, and it has been widely adopted. The article that was on Where Was the Origin of Tonic Masculinity said that when they did a search on toxic masculinity, they came up with 28,000 hits on, I think that was Medium, but tonic, not at all. So the term toxic masculinity had to be developed because it's not just masculinity. And I don't think guys are getting this. That if it was just masculinity that was all toxic, you wouldn't need that term. There would be no reason for women to be distinguishing this particular thing that they believe is poisonous and that they experience as poisonous. They would be able to just say, oh, well, that's all men. That's just masculinity. But it is not. So when men are describing what tonic masculinity is, what they're describing is what they feel is masculinity. But that's not what is the opposite of toxic. because they don't believe that toxic exists. That's not a term that men use. It's a term that women use. And we're the ones who need to be able to say, okay, that's what this is, but here is what is tonic. The other reason that it is up to women to define tonic masculinity is because it's about the relationship between men and women. All of the men who took it from me, the phrase, have used it to mean the relationships between men. And certainly, those have been broken. And I believe those have been broken because of patriarchy, because men no longer work with their hands. They no longer help build a house. They no longer help their neighbor figure out their plumbing. These are things that have been taken from us. And there is something with masculinity and working with your hands. Manual labor. It's something we all do who take care of families and houses. But it is particular to men and is a part of what's bonding between men. So yes, that's broken. But that wasn't toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity meant that this was broken between men and women. I define toxic masculinity as superiority to women. And that's something that is, again, part of patriarchy. It's not part of masculinity. So what is the antidote to that? It's not seeing women as equal, because that ends up going into, oh, we're all the same. Therefore, yes, women should be out there serving the market just like men. No, men should not be serving the market either. And that's a euphemism for serving the bankers. We say sometimes investors, but they are not really investors because they're not putting anything of their own into it. They're putting into businesses what they stole from our parents and our grandparents through their mortgages. So this is all a cycle that they keep going, and we need to break it. Tonic masculinity is not women being equal in the boardroom, in the masculine world of business. It is masculine in service to the feminine, because the feminine is the home and the family. The feminine is also the intuitive. The feminine is the spiritual. The masculine is certainly the religion. But the spiritual is the right-mindedness, the feminine side of the brain. And there is a connection between women and spirit. I think that that's true. Tonic masculinity is men feeling that they have something to learn from women in realms like economics. The word economics comes from management of the household. And in the male realm of that, it got to mean managing slaves, managing servants. But every mother is an economist. You have to be balancing things out to make sure that they're fair. You have to be figuring out incentives. You have to be trying to stay ahead of those little Machiavellian midgets who are trying to get what they want without giving you what you want. So this is something that mothers are all experienced at. I recently had a conversation with Doc Malik, who is such a warm and genuine and delightful person. At some point, I said, well, I'm just a housewife. And he said, never, never, never use that term just again in front of housewife. Here I am. I'm a house husband. And indeed, we were chatting while his kids did gymnastics and he fed them hot chocolate to keep occupied. That is something that I really appreciate it because he's very genuine in how he says that. But I also thought, I'll stop using just when you stop using doc and stop presenting yourself as a former orthopedic surgeon rather than as a house husband. It's the same thing I was saying with those two women who were doing a podcast about why women should be stay-at-home wives. but didn't present themselves that way, presented themselves based on their former academic and business credentials. Every time that someone says, "So, what do you do?" what they're asking for is your status in the male world of business and money. That's who we are, and I think that that's a habit that we need to break. Tonic masculinity is laughing at women's jokes. It took me until I was divorced and hanging around with all women to discover that I was actually pretty hilarious, and not just the one who laughs. There's a trope among men on the online dating world that the way to a woman's heart or something is to make her laugh. But that's not really true, and they try way too hard about that. It's really appreciating her sense of humor and laughing at her jokes. That there is a power dynamic of laughter, and I will attach the video that I made on that is a competition, and that's not really the way that it should be. We should just be enjoying each other. We don't need to be sensitive and listening to each other process our feelings. That's such a stereotype. Just laugh. My oldest daughter and I were talking about a couple of guys that we know and talking about how they're so captivating and so charming, so much fun to be with. But you always feel on edge. You feel like you're being tested and that you have to live up to your role in their drama. And that for her, she said she was glad that she realized how much it meant to her to feel safe. Not feel safe as in, oh, he can stand up to the bullies if I'm attacked. Feeling safe with someone. Feeling like someone just genuinely likes you and that you know that they're always going to have your back. That, I think, is tonic masculinity. That gut feeling that we can just have fun together and it doesn't have to be this competition. There isn't anyone else we care what they think about us. This is something that I think we need, and I think it's the reward. I think it's the goal of tonic masculinity, to get back to that place where things are just easy, and we can do the things that are the most natural in the world that everyone deserves, which is to love each other and raise families and enjoy the heck out of each other. As promised, here is the power dynamics of laughter, and this is the Horus Gamos, the new sacred union between the masculine and the feminine. Thank you for watching.